The lesson.
Oh yeah.
And then so it's after that the body bag media thing has popped off, and then that's where you started to see Chillin' It. And
yeah, I don't think many of us knew Chill at that time. I think a lot of Aussie hip hop was pretty focused on Sydney for a long time, and a lot of us weren't from Sydney, and we were all linking up through that grime movement. 50-50 brought a lot of us together, and not all of those people were just grime MCs either. I think the first time I saw Chill was on Body Bag, but it definitely was like Husky and Snow. That was a big moment, a huge moment. Watching that movement, you know, these guys hanging out in the studio, building the studio, just mushing out every night of the week. You know, and then you had this X Factor Snow coming up from Melbourne, and you know, what was it? Was it pineapples? Healthy peas, healthy peas. And I remember being in Brizzy watching that. That was fucking wild.
Because you ended up working with all those guys at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was kind of, I guess, you know, from meeting Wombat, looking up through the grime stuff to, you know, the Body Bag movement. We went down for the Get Bodied Fest. I was there for the first ever show down in Sydney, and that was where everything really came together and everyone started to meet.
So what year would that have been? 2018, 17?
I think that was 2018. Yeah.
So that's when dudes like Chill, Husky, Alex Jones, yourself, Nerve,
Yeah,
all sort of started.
That was the week when I stayed at Chill's place, and you know, it was like 5 a.m, and me, Husky, and Snow went to the service station and did servo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'd only just met the boys that week.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and kind of pitched them this idea of, you know, you got this fucking banging servo song, which was a sound that no one was really doing in Australia, I think. And I was like, what do you reckon about us repping the service station and walking through it? And yeah, Chillin' It drove us. I think OBL from 111 was there as well. We met all the 111 guys that trip on the Get Bodied show because they were on the lineup too. And yeah, we just put up at the servo and did it. But those artists, all of them, you know, they have their own vibe and doing their own thing, like from, you know, walking through the servo and, you know, the boys grabbing all the bits and pieces and, you know, the sneaky bits in the backpack, and, you know, then walking out and Snow throwing the $10 note on the ground and then Chilling It, running to pick it up, and Husky's girlfriend's there cleaning the car. Like, none of that was planned. It was kind of just that same one take culture. Like, here's the spot, let's walk around it, and the boys just being themselves. And yeah, it came out to be a big thing.
Now, you talk about the Get Bodied Festival, that's kind of where it all started coming together. But that Sydney show, that wasn't the one where, because one of the Get Bodied festivals or shows had like the riot thing that happened.
That was Brizzy, that was our hometown.
So that was a part of the same tour, but different city.
So the Sydney show, it was awesome, everyone linking up, but I think it was only 300 people in a pub. It was a small pub gig. I don't even know how 300 people fit in there. Could have been less. And then the Brizzy one was when all the boys came up, and you had that whole new movement of artists coming up, and it was wild. They played at the Triffid. I think they did 500 tickets, and the capacity there's massive. It's an old air hangar, and that was massive as well because you had all the boys from, you know, Melbourne, Sydney, I think Shadow from Perth, 111, all these guys coming up to the Brizzy gig. And then we had our crew, Syntax Junkies and Scrub. And so you just had this massive fucking lineup. And yeah, it was fucking wild. I remember I hadn't seen any shit like that, hey, because we were doing a lot of the media. And just like I remember watching, 201 was massive at the time. 201 was huge. And that was a massive movement on the internet. And then it come into life in Brisbane, kids just went wild. I saw shit in the crowd I've never seen at a hip hop gig before.
Can you tell us the kind of shit that you saw?
I literally saw cunts like feeding each other Xanny bars and shit and stuff like it was fucked. Like, you know, looking back at it, you're like, you know, growing up a bit more now, it's like, was that culture necessarily, you know, appropriate? But it was part of it, you know, and I was there to be like documenting that but what the energy and what they brought on stage and the way they performed, and that, you know, that crew element, that new young crew wave movement, and they were all documenting it because those boys were all in a van kicking it together, you know, coming up the East Coast, you know, driving together, and just like the fuckery and all the, you know, mucking around that you could see getting documented. And it kind of, I think, brought back that ground level of just being young with your crew, and just riding it out.
Yeah, run a mark.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Chill was a big spearhead of that. You know, his energy and what he represented, you know, was trying to pull that all together and really get everyone to be pushing this movement, you know. And because he was the older one of the group, and, you know, he'd been doing his thing on Hustle Hard for a while, and yeah, so it was cool to watch and be witness to it, and then document a little bit of it too.
So then, can you recall? Because I've spoke to Scrub, I think last week or the week before, because he was there, but he can't actually remember exactly what happened. He just remembered that there was a ride out the front. But can you recall?
Yeah. So you just had your classic, like, two dudes, fans, just wanting to kick on at the end of the show. They shut down the show. I think midnight it was closing up, so like everyone out.
So did everyone get to perform, or some acts had their sets cut?
Some acts got their set cut, but I don't know if that was whether or not because we just went over time. Because you're talking about a bunch of young cunts that were just trying to run their own show on such an epic scale. And I think the thing that really stuffed up was that, you know, the Trifid just opened the floodgates. You know, they were just like, all right, show's over, everyone out. And you're talking about a dead-end street. And so everyone's flooded out. And then obviously some shit's kicked off between two people. And it really wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, it's fucking, you know, fuck that shit. That's Gronk behavior. But these two people kicked off, and the cops just came swinging in on this dead end. Cars pulled up. And you've got 500 people spilling out of a show, and the cop cars just come at the end of the road and block it off. So it's the only way out, and you got 500 kids who are just G'd the fuck up from like one of the most epic shows I've seen, and there's only one way out, and we're all just heading towards the cop cars. So we kind of asked for it a bit. It was a bit of a tease.
And then so then what's happened from there? So the cops have pretty much just blocked everyone into a dead end.
Yeah,
zone.
and then they're coming down trying to, you know, aggressively control the chaos. And I think, you know, just psychology of people, you know, a few boys started kicking it off, and the cops had to pull back.
So what actually happened? Did they start like throwing bottles at the police, or?
I think some bottles were thrown. Just mainly people just getting G'd up and yelling at them. And just drunk young shit. And, I think at the point I remember at that point there was all this shit going on, and Nerves just walking around with a trolley full of merch, selling merch, and it was just chaotic. But honestly, it wasn't too bad. There were a few people, you know, in the fights and stuff, and a bunch of people getting arrested. That only amplifies and makes that energy even more aggressive. I think, you know, someone seeing their mates getting arrested, then they G up, or, you know, whether they think he did anything wrong, and the cops just kind of choose their targets without actually having any reason to, and it just escalated from there, you know. Yeah,
right. And then so how did it all end up fizzling out?
I think there were everyone, you know, who wanted to get out of the street could, but there was a fuckload more cops came, and I think that was kind of how they did it. Just more and more cops come, but it wasn't like 500 people lined up with rocks and bottles, and like it was nothing like that. Like if you wanted to get out of there, you could.
Yeah.
But I think them adding to the energy just made certain people more aggressive. It just got a bit wild, and then you know, you had the news come in and document it. So then I think that was a massive moment. Was, you know, I think you got that chilling at bar till we get on the Channel 9 news or whatever, and then fucking on Sunday night, like there's shots of the show on Channel 9 news. So they really helped the boys out with that one.
And then so was it after that event that Nerve and Chill did that collab, or was that before that?
Yeah, so we had a studio in Brisbane, and all the guys were hanging out there. At that point, it was just a shed studio. We had a bunch of the lads coming through and hanging out. Before all of that as well, I think you had a Wombat show, and that was where Chill had met a lot of the guys. The same thing. You just had this body movement, body bag movement. And they were all hanging out and coming up. Or it might have been just after when we did the Wombat show, actually. And that kind of solidified it a bit later, like 6 months later. Everyone was just linking up and chatting and doing their thing. But I think Toby and Nerve and Chill did their track at Body Bag Studios.
Ah, so you didn't film that one?
No, I wasn't around for that. Wombat was going over to Body Bag and to go hang out with those guys, and Nerve went along.
Yeah, okay.
And they made some tracks, and yeah.
The lesson. 927. Oh, yeah.